All right, everybody say hi. Everybody say hi to the cousins. Okay, all right. And now we are ready to read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, chapter 2. Okay. Now, in the first one, what happened? Seeing how we had you missing. And
I know what it's about.
No, you be quiet. You weren't here. What happened? Somebody else who wants to say. What happened in the first one? What happened? Did they go in the wardrobe?
Yep.
And did they find the lantern?
Yes. Wait, no,
And
I don't remember that.
they did. They found the lantern. It was just barely part of it. And that's pretty much what happened in the first one. That's pretty simple, right?
Uh-huh.
And for you, we only have 4 pages this time, so I think you can make it. Okay?
Again,
1,
4 pages?
2, 3, 4 pages, and then we're done. And then we probably could get a chocolate covered raisin, and some of you guys can help me do bread.
But I want to do bread.
You want to help me too?
Yeah.
Okay. We may allow you to help me, but we got to read the book first, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
All right.
I just gonna take 5.
I know you want your socks off. It's pretty normal for you to want your socks off. All right,
Don't
you
lose
ready?
them because you can't wear boots without them, so do not lose those.
Oh yeah, that's right. Don't lose them.
Okay. Give them to me. No.
Anyway, are you guys ready to go?
Yep.
Vamonos, let's do it. Good evening, said Lucy, but the fawn was so busy picking up his parcels because she dropped them, right? The fawn ran into Lucy and had a big fright and dropped all of his packages, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what
I
happened.
didn't know what parcels
Okay,
were.
but he didn't reply. Then, when he had finished, it made a little bow. Good evening, said the fawn. Excuse me, I don't want to be inquisitive, but should I be in right mind thinking that you are a daughter of Eve? My name is Lucy, said she, not quite understanding him. But you are, forgive me, you are what they call a girl, said the fawn. Of course I am, said Lucy. You are, in fact, human. Of course I'm a human, said Lucy, still a little puzzled. Well, to be sure, said the fawn. How stupid of me. But I've never seen a son of Adam or a daughter of Eve before. I am delighted. That is to say, then he stopped, as if he had been going on to say something he had not intended but had remembered in time. Delighted, it went on. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tumnus.
Tomness.
Do you want to be called Tumnus?
It's Tomness.
Would you like to have a name like Tumnus?
It's Tomness.
It's
Tomness.
It's not Thomas. I hate
No,
to
it's
tell you.
Tomness.
It's Tomnus, perhaps.
Yes.
I didn't watch the movie, so I don't know how they said it. But Tomnus is okay. We'll say
Yeah,
it that
but
way.
she pronounced it Mr. Tomness.
Mr. Thomas. Okay, I'm okay with that. I'm all right. And may I ask, O Lucy, daughter of Eve, said Mr. Tomnus, how you have come into Narnia? Narnia? What's that? Said Lucia. This is the land of Narnia, said the fawn, where we are now. All that lies between the lamppost and the great castle of Cair Paravel on the eastern sea, and you have come from the wild woods of the west? I got in through the wardrobe in the spare room, said Lucy. She got in through the wardrobe. That sounds crazy. How do you get in through the wardrobe? But that's a pretty special wardrobe, wasn't it? Because it was made out of a special tree, right?
I want to go in it.
Yes, no kidding. I want to go in it too, yes. And said Mr. Tumnus with a rather melancholy voice, if only I had worked harder at geography when I was a little fawn, I should no doubt know all about those strange countries. Because he thought the wardrobe was a country, right? It's too late now. But they aren't countries at all, said Lucy, almost laughing. It's only just back here, at least. Oh, I'm not sure. It's summer there, I think. Meanwhile, said Mr. Tumma, it is Tumnus. It is winter in Narnia, and it has been for ever so long, and we shall both catch cold if we stand here talking in the snow. Daughter of Eve, from the far land of Spare Room, where the eternal summer reigns, and the bright city of Wardrobe, how would it be if you came and had tea with me? Do you think Tumnus is, do you think he's being a good guy?
Yeah, but
Okay.
he's working for
No, he's not.
You have lots and lots. You have to be patient, okay?
Yeah.
You can do it. Here, get your hands and go like this. And just wait. Then you can do it. It makes it easier if you scrunch up your whole face and just wait. See what? See your sister's doing it. You can do it. You can do it. Okay, very good. All right. And so Lucy found herself walking through the wood, arm in arm with this strange creature, as if they had known one another all their lives. They had not gone far before they came to a place where the ground became rough and there were rocks all around and little hills up and little hills down. And at the bottom of one small valley, Mr. Tumnus turned suddenly aside as if he were going to walk straight into an unusually large rock, but at the last moment Lucy found he was leading her into the entrance of a cave. As soon as they were inside, she found herself blinking in the light of the wood fire. Then Mr. Tumnus stooped and took a flaming piece of wood out of the fire with a neat little pair of tongs and little lamp. "We shan't be long," he said, and immediately put a kettle on. Lucy thought she had never seen a nicer place. It was a little dry, clean cave of red stone, with carpet on the floor and 2 little chairs, "one for me and one for my friend," said Mr. Tumnus, "and a table and a dresser and a mantelpiece over the fire, and above the picture, and above it that, a picture of an old fawn with a gray beard." You think
That's his father.
you think fawns
It's his
get gray
father.
beards? It's his
That's his
father?
father.
Yeah, but it looks just the same.
Okay.
It looks
In
like-
one corner there was a door which Lucy thought must lead to Mr. Tumnus' bedroom, and on one wall was a shelf full of books. Lucy looked at those while he was setting out the tea things. They had titles like The Life and Letters of Silliness, or Nymphs and Their Ways, or Men, Monks, and Gamekeepers, A Study in Popular Legend, or Is Man a Myth? There you go. "Now, daughter of Eve," said the fawn. And really, it was a wonderful tea. There was a nice brown egg, lightly boiled, for each of them, and then sardines on toast, and then buttered toast, and then toast with honey, and then sugar-topped cake. And then when Lucy was tired of eating, the fawn began to talk. Would you guys like sugar-topped cake?
Yeah.
And then toast with honey?
Yeah.
Me too. I think I like toast with honey and sugar-topped cake, or just sugar. Actually, it's pretty good all by itself. All right. He had wonderful tales to tell of life in the forest. He told about the midnight dances and how the nymphs who lived in the wells and the dryads who lived in the trees came out to dance with the fawns, about long hunting parties after the milk-white stag who would give you wishes if you caught him, about feasting and treasure-seeking with the wild red dwarfs in deep mines and caverns far beneath the forest floor, and then about summer when the woods were green and old Silliness and his fat donkey would come up to visit them, and sometimes Bacchus himself, and then the streams would run with wine instead of water, and the whole forest would give itself up to jollification for weeks on end. Not that it isn't always winter now, he said gloomily. Then to cheer himself up, he took out from its case in the dresser a strange little flute that looked as if it were made out of straw, and he began to play. And the tune he played made Lucy begin to want to cry. Wow. You want to have somebody play a
Can I
song?
tell you something creepy?
Do you want it? You want somebody to play you a song that makes you want to cry?
Can I tell you something? Because when he plays the song, it makes flames like dance in the fire.
In the
before-
fire, yes.
Yeah, it's
And-
magic music.
It's like magic music. So I guess you guys know
It's
what's
really
coming
freaky.
next. I think you guys know what's coming next, don't you?
I know.
I know.
Okay, don't
Because
say
it's
anything.
gonna come-
Don't say anything in case somebody else doesn't know.
Yeah.
All right, you have to do it. Okay. Okay. I do love that tune, but really I must go home. I only meant to stay for a few minutes, so she gets up and getting ready to go, right? "Oh, no, good now, you know," said the fawn, laying down the flute and shaking his head at her very sorrowfully. "No good," said Lucy, jumping up and feeling rather frightened. "What do you mean? I've got to go home at once. The others will be wondering what happened to me." But a moment later she asked, "Mr. Tumnus, whatever is the matter?" So what happened to him? Did anybody remember?
He kidnapped her
No, he started.
Yeah.
He started to cry.
because
Yeah,
he kidnapped
he
her.
said that.
He didn't kidnap her.
Yeah, he did. He even said that in the movie.
Well, but he didn't. Okay, this is actually the story the movie was made out of. I hate to tell you that maybe they may have changed the story a little bit in the movie sometimes. So we'll see. Shall we read the book and find out what really happened?
Yes.
Shall we?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes.
All right, let's find out. For the fawn's brown eyes had filled with tears, and then the tears began trickling down his cheeks, and soon they were running off the end of his nose, and at last it covered his face and his hands, and he began to howl. Must be like a dog howls. Wow. Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy in great distress. Don't. What is the matter? Aren't you well? Dear Mr. Tumnus, do tell me what is wrong. But the fawn continued sobbing as if his heart would break. And even when Lucy went over and put her arms around him and lent him her handkerchief, he did not stop. He merely took the handkerchief and kept on using it, wringing it out with both hands whenever it got too wet to be any use anymore. So, But presently Lucy was standing on a damp patch. Mr. Tumnus, bawled Lucy in his ear, shaking him. Do stop! Stop at once! You ought to be ashamed of yourself, a great big fawn like you. What on earth are you crying about? Oh, sobbed Tumnus. I'm crying because I am such a bad fawn. I don't think you're a bad fawn at all, said Lucy. I think you are a very good fawn. You are the nicest fawn I have ever met. Oh, you wouldn't say it if you knew, replied Mr. Tumnus between sobs. No, I'm a bad fawn. I don't suppose there ever was a worse fawn since the beginning of the world. What have you done? Said Lucy. My old father now, said Mr. Tumnus, that is his picture over the mantelpiece. He would have never done a thing like this. A thing like what? Said Lucy. Like what I've done, said the fawn. Taken service under the White Witch. That's what I am. I am in the pay of the White Witch.
I know, he works for the White Witch.
The White Witch, who is she? Why, it's she who has all of Narnia under her thumb. It is she who makes it always winter and never Christmas. Think of that. How awful, said Lucy. What does she pay you for? That's the worst of it, said Mr. Tumnus with a deep groan. I'm a kidnapper for her. That's what I am. Look at me, daughter of Eve. Would you believe that I am the sort of fawn to meet a poor innocent child in the wood, one that had never done me any harm, and pretend to be friendly with it and invite it home to my cave, all for the sake of lulling it asleep and then handing it over to the White Witch? No, said Lucy. I'm sure you wouldn't do anything of the sort, but I have, said the fawn. Well, said Lucy rather slowly, for she wanted to be truthful and yet not be too hard on him. Well, that's pretty bad, but you're sorry for it, that I'm sure, if you will never do it again. Daughter of Eve, don't you understand, said the fawn? It isn't something I have done. I'm doing it now at the very moment. What do you mean? Cried Lucy, turning very white. You are the child, said Tumnus. I had orders from the White Witch that if ever I saw a son of Adam or daughter of Eve in the wood, I was to catch them and hand them over to her. And you are the first I have ever met. And I pretended to be your friend and asked you to tea, and all the time I've been meaning to wait till you were asleep and then go and tell her. That doesn't sound very nice, does he?
He's a kidnapper.
He's a kidnapper.
He kidnapped her.
Oh, but you won't, Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy. You won't, will you? Indeed, you mustn't, really. And if I don't, he said, beginning to cry again, she's sure to find out, and she'll have my tail cut off, and my horns sawn off, and my beard plucked out, and she'll wave her wand over my beautiful cloven hooves and turn them into horrid solid hooves like wretched horses. And if she is extra and especially angry, she'll turn me into a stone, and I shall be only a statue of a fawn in her horrible house until the 4 thrones at Cair Paravel are filled. And goodness knows when that will happen, or whether it will ever happen at all. Well, I'm very sorry, Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy, but please let me go home. Of course I will, said the fawn. Of course, I've got to. I see that now. I hadn't known that humans were like you before I met you. Of course I can't give you up to the witch. Not now that I know you, but we must be off at once. I'll see you back to the lamppost. I suppose you can find your own way from there back to Spare and the wardrobe.
Huh.
He doesn't understand what she said, does he?
And the wardrobe.
Yeah. He thinks those are places, like counties or countries. That's what he thinks. Okay, we must go as quietly as we can, said Mr. Tumnus. The whole wood is full of her spies. What are spies? Who knows what spies
Like people that
What are
spy.
spies?
It's when you're in the wood, she can see you.
They're looking while she's
She's
in the
looking
wood.
at you.
So she's using other people to look for her.
That's like a servant.
It's like a servant who's just looking. Right? Spies are sort of
And
like...
then I'm guessing she'd reward them if they completed her deed.
I bet that's right. Okay, they both got up and left their tea things on the table, and Mr. Tumnus once more put up his umbrella and gave Lucy his arm, and they went out into the snow. The journey back was not at all like the journey to the fawn's cave. They stole along as quickly as they could without speaking a word, and Mr. Tumnus kept to the darkest places. Lucy was relieved when they reached the lamppost again. Do you know your way from here, daughter of Eve? Said Mr. Tumnus. Lucy looked very hard between the trees and could just see in the distance a patch of light that looked like daylight. Yes, she said, I can see the wardrobe door. Then be off as quickly as you can, said the fawn, and can you ever forgive me for what I meant to do to you? Why, of course I can, said Lucy, shaking him heartily by the hand, and I do hope you won't get into dreadful trouble on my account. Farewell, daughter of Eve, said he. Perhaps I may keep the handkerchief. Rather, said Lucy, and ran forwards the far-off patch of daylight as quickly as her legs would carry her. And presently, instead of rough branches brushing past her, she felt what? Coats, right? And instead of crunching snow under her feet, she felt wooden boards. And all at once, she found herself jumping out of the wardrobe into the same empty room from which the whole adventure had started. She shut the wardrobe door tightly behind her and looked around, panting for breath. It was still raining, and she could still hear voices of the others in the passage. "I'm here," she shouted. "I'm here. I've come back. I'm all right." And guess what that is?
What? End of the story.
The end of the story. You guys don't want me to read another chapter, do you?
I do.
I
You do? Man, you know, if we keep reading chapters and chapters, then we have to read how much?
The whole book.
Yeah, I mean, it would be too hard to stop ever, right?
Uh-huh.
Can you shut off the video for me, please?
Bye,
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Bye, guys. Shut off the video.
Bye.